Unlock the past.
Shape the future.
Dive deeper.
Discover more.
Welcome to Artifact
Season 2.
on Al Ula FM Podcasts.
The sound of Arabia.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have with me Miss Salam Bohlmann, and she is an intercultural industrial engineer. And her specialty is in public art management, public art curation, public art, working in public art in general. And she has 20 years of experience, and she is one of the most renowned experts in her field. Please, Miss Salam, tell us more about yourself, because I'm sure I haven't covered it all.
Okay. So, thank you, Joshua, for having me. And where to start? Intercultural is because I grew up in Jordan and I lived a lot of years, let's say, between in Europe in general and then in the Middle East, in the Gulf. So this is where comes the word intercultural. I just try to connect several cultures at the same time. And this comes also with the languages. I speak fluently and I can communicate and understand 4 languages, cultures. And
What
at the
are
same
those?
time,
What are those? Sorry, now because that is, of course, everybody wants to know. Those are.
it's Arabic, English, German, Spanish, a bit of French, and I always keep learning different things. And industrial engineering. It's I studied that as part in Jordan. So I'm an industrial engineer, and industrial engineer, it has the ability to prepare you to understand what is management, but at the same time, what are the processes that you need in a factory, in a facility, and so on. And it was for me an opening to be able to work in different fields, which at some point led me to be involved and interested in art in general, which at most of the time I really liked art. I was interested as a, let's say, personal interest, hobby. I like to do things with my hands, but then I was lucky to be able to add this interest to my work life.
It is quite the segue. Factories to art to intercultural engineering. So, what led you through that segue or onto that segue? How did you transform from being not simple, by the way, but being simply a industrial engineer and incorporate that with your passion for art and creativity? Because I would think one is very worried about metrics, one is worried about preciseness, and one is very worried about specific outcomes or outputs that are being put into this mechanism, which is, creating tangible goods, perhaps. And you're also interested in a world that could care less about outputs, could care less about the tangibleness or the metrics or the indicators. So it looks like you came from one world, but your heart was really in another world. Or perhaps you love them both equally.
Or perhaps it's a myth that creativity is seen that way. I do believe that creativity cares even more about preciseness and the details as much as the technical word, which is also creative in its own way.
Wow. I've seriously never, ever thought about it or seen it argued in that way. And why do you feel that way?
Well, it's because of my contact with some artists. You see that, for example, with a lot of projects, the artist might seem that he is letting go of his vision because of lack of the possibility to understand what he really wants to say. So it's a communication problem. And this is one of the languages that, thanks to God, I can speak, is understanding artists. So you can understand what the artist wants, and you need to translate this need and this vision and this hope, I would say, to the engineer who speaks a different language. So when you combine these both, you will see that everyone is meticulous about the details, but in his own way, and you need just to bring them at the same table.
Wow. I've never ever thought about it in that way. And I guess that is the purpose of this podcast, is to give people alternative and challenging perspectives. And so thank you so much for that, Salam.
Anytime.
Tell me, your specialty is in public art.
Mhm.
And what got you into public art? Why public art? Like, why didn't you choose to have a specialty, for instance, in fine art or cultural folk art?
Oh, well, it's. I think it's part of it. It's my engineering and technical background. I might give you a bit of background of how I came into this. Um, I have 3 kids. They're not kids anymore. They're all universities.
They're still your kids.
But still my kids, yes. And I wanted to spend time with them. So I decided that I don't want to be employed like this. I can control my time. I control being with them, always with them, and so on. So I opted for freelancing, which gave me the possibility to work with several companies, presenting them in the Middle East from Europe. But the main company that I presented was a well-known artwork fabricator, which is Arnold. And this led me, and I do must say I'm grateful for a lot of my knowledge to them. And this is how it started, and this is how it's going on. So,
How are you, or how should we, when looking at your case or analyzing your story, how should we define public art? Not for like a general definition. I'm sure everybody has their own general definition of what public art is,
Mhm.
but when we're studying or when we're looking at Salam, what does Salam think, or how does Salam define public art?
Okay. I think for me, it's exactly what you started with, this intercultural from different aspects, interdisciplinary. I love the way you have a team working on public art from several different kinds of backgrounds. You bring these people together. And the best thing is that they all give their opinion. You see, the artist, his team, his studio, and the fabricator, the workshops, all levels of kind of people, from managerial to to the people who are working in the workshops. Everyone is involved in art, and they are seeing art in a different way. And at the same time, they are part of producing this artwork. So for me, even if the concept comes from an artist, but he allows everybody to be part of it, from the inception, from ideation, to the time that it is installed and shared on the street. So at the same time, when the artist install his artwork in the public realm, he's allowing the passerbys to share with his artwork later as their opinion. And a lot of artists I know that some of them they try to know what people are talking. When you talk to the artists, some of them they would tell you, "I like to know what is the feedback from the people, not as to classify it or categorize it as a good feedback or a bad feedback, but it's because then they are part of it. It's part of the conversation." So public art is not just a sculpture or a collection of materials that they are put together and it's there. I think it's a story, and it is told every day from a different point of view and different perspective.
But you've participated so you're not just there to simply implement. You've been a part of the creative process. So you, from what I understand, is not only were you a part of the implementation or the execution process of certain artworks, you're also a part of the creation or the kind of the developmental stage of some of these artworks as well.
Yes, it comes in a way of like dialogues when the artist has an idea and they need support. So I officially I give my opinion from a technical point of view, but when the artist requests something different, then it's like a friendship and a friend giving. An advice to a friend if this makes sense, if the color is okay, what would be, what would not. But normally, from a technical point of view, yes. At some point, the dialogue starts between the artist and engineer, and this would be, by the way, one of the days that we will be talking in the masterclass that I will be teaching in 2 weeks. Is what is the dialogue between an artist and an engineer? So you go into these details. The artist wants the art to be 30-meter high, then you need to see if this is okay. Why do you want it to be 30-meter high? Does it make sense? Is it feasible technically, financially, and all these stuff? I'm boring you now with
No,
the
no, no, no. Actually, I'm
details.
very interested because I'm thinking, are you always the bringer of bad news to are you like the reality card that needs to be shown constantly to people who want to work on expansive public artworks? Is this like, all right, it's really nice hearing about your fantasy, hearing about your dream, hearing about your message, but we've got to call Salam to see if this is actually possible.
No, actually, sometimes I see a lot of artworks in general, not only public, where I see that, for example, it aches my heart because somebody did not understand the artist what they wanted. And it could have been fabricated and installed in a different way where you can see that the artist vision better. And but this is sometimes the missing link, is that when the artist, or better said, it's not the artist, it's when the fabricator or the workshop does not have this communication with the artist.
So you're also so not only are you translating, the artist's vision into real life, you're also the kind of the channel in which the artist has to communicate with effectively, or who you have to understand effectively in order to really materialize on what they have planned as far as their artwork. And so
Exactly, yeah.
so this intercultural thing arises again. Not only are you perhaps solving issues for people that speak different languages or have different socioeconomic backgrounds, but who also have different levels or different aspects and disciplines of expertise.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
you might be the best artist in the world, but if you're not able to communicate effectively why and how you need your art installation to be built or constructed, if the artist comes to you and says, I want to do something pitch black, I want it to be black and I want it to be in the middle of the city, you as the engineer, you come and say, well, maybe black isn't ideal. Maybe you should choose like red, for instance. Is that like kind of the kind of consultation or the kind of help you give to the artist?
It would be in that direction, but not that way. It would be that I will have to test if black is the right color in that place. Is it going to be a matter of safety and security? Will it affect the people passing by? For example, sorry, shiny surfaces are not good because they will reflect something, they might heat up. That direction, how I give my consultation. Not in to tell him black is not good, you choose red. It's not
so blunt.
No, it's I don't attack or I don't interfere in his vision. What as I said, my consultation would be always purely technical. On a private level, I might tell him I don't like black.
So Salam, one of the things that I really wanted to ask you about was when it comes to implementing the artist's vision, And of course, sometimes, the artist is not an engineer like yourself. They have a different type of message they want to deliver, even though you were very stern in reminding us that also engineering could also be interpreted as a type of arts. And so, just shame on me. But when you're having to communicate with the artist might have a very grandiose, maybe very exaggerated forms, exaggerated colors, exaggerated placement. Maybe they want to place it somewhere structurally it's not allowed or not in the city coding or whatever. How do you bring the artist back to earth, let's say?
It's let's say, how do we do it? The first dialogue would never suggest these kinds of limitations, because I think it's everyone has to fly with their creativity, so as to understand the depth and the height of the vision of the artist, to know exactly what they want. And when they talk, you will notice that some aspects are more important than the other. When you go into details, they will tell you, this has to stay, the other can't, and so on. So you need to make them fly with their creativity, see what they really want, understand the vision for the place, for the artwork. And then mainly when it comes to site-specific commissions or public realm in general, the artist normally, if he's or she is a public artist, they understand that it's a matter of a teamwork. It's not only my vision. So they already know these things, and they will know that the place will have its limitation, the crowd, the footfall, sunlight, safety and security. All these limitations slowly start to come, and the artist will normally have the vision that fit within these limitations.
That is actually very fascinating when you think about it, because for me, as someone who's just walking by the street, I just think a crane comes, puts it down, and leaves. Like, this is my imagination of, this is how I, cope with the trauma of not understanding how these public arts are installed. But considering how to install the artist's vision is, in fact, also an art, because there's a lot of decision making, there's a lot of prioritization from what you've been teaching us today. There is a lot of communication. There's a lot of understanding of materials. So even that in itself is, in your specific situation, even though there's nothing really specific about your situation, but from what I've gathered, you're almost the paintbrush. Not to reduce you in any way, but I mean, like, you are essentially, do you know what I'm saying? The part that touches the paper, or the part that touches the canvas, when it comes to the artists kind of having to channel their vision through you, and then you're the one essentially responsible to make sure that vision is realized or materialized literally.
Thank you. I'm too humbled.
No, but this is the way I understand it, and I'm sure that has a lot of different facets. I mean, the artist has a vision, and for instance, if you're working with urban public art, I'm sure the city officials have different goals. So the artist has goals. The city officials have goals. The public has other goals. Maybe there's a sponsor. They have a goal. Maybe there are, people who are attached to that message the artist is going to deliver are also have their own priorities. So there's a lot of stakeholder management as well. So how do you end up managing all those different stakeholders? Not only do they speak different languages, literally, but they also have completely different mindsets and different goals. So how do you make sure people are somewhat satisfied with the end product?
Yeah, I think it's what you said. It's you need to bring these people to be satisfied with the end product, and it's a game of give and take. So at some points you try to give more to the commissioner, try to take from the artist, others the other way. So it's a matter of communication, and you need to come to not a compromise, but where somehow everybody is satisfied with a final decision. It's a lot of
You go to a consensus then. If you're not coming to a
yes.
compromise, you're coming to some level of consensus.
Yes, you need to clarify what are the limitations. Limitations can be financial, time-wise, because it's the ideation process cannot take too long, where the artist sometimes would like to always just give me one more day. And so at some point you say, that's it, design freeze, design phase is done, we have to. And it's walking along everybody during the project. You cannot leave people on their own. You need to build these relationships. You need to make it easy for people to understand that it's a teamwork, where it's actually, I'm not saying something new, it's what every project needs. But when it comes to art projects, you have, from my side, I see that the how do you call it? The aspect of the human factor is too high, and you are dealing with a lot of variables than constraints, and you need to bring the constraints inside. That is time, money, stakeholder vision, and the artist vision. So you need to bring this mix, and it's not a mix match thing.
No,
It's
absolutely. I mean, a mixed match would be like, for instance, if you were designing a skyscraper and your sponsor or your client says to you, I want to maximize for floor spacage. I want to maximize for efficiency, energy efficiency. I want to maximize for being the tallest. Like, how do I don't care if there's any utility behind this building, as long as it's the tallest, or as long as it's the longest, or as long as it's the the most glass intensive. So art, of course, isn't necessarily looking for something that is always the most of something, whether it be efficient or whether it be square footage or square meterage. It's looking to also communicate a very essential message. So when you're negotiating with these stakeholders, do you ever have to go back to the artist and say, we have to sacrifice a part of your message in order for this art installation or this artistic execution to work?
We never sacrifice the message, but we try to tell the message differently. So you don't sacrifice the message. The artist, and this is what I always encourage the artist to do. You don't sacrifice your message, because normally the message is like out of principle. You don't say it because I feel like it and tomorrow I will change it. So you don't sacrifice your message, but you try to find different ways to say it. Maybe not too red, you just go down with the color. So you find ways to reach the same message but saying it differently.
Do you have any unique challenges you can remember from your career that people might have never thought about? Like when I heard from a pilot, the most accidents that happen in aviation are because the birds hit the planes, they hit birds or flocks of birds, which is like mind blowing. Wow, like it's not because they run out of gas, it's not because they fall asleep piloting the airplane. It's because birds are co-occupying the space for airplanes, and apparently that's one of the largest safety precautions that pilots need to consider when taking off and landing.
Yeah.
Mind-boggling. So what are some of those things that we don't see in your sector?
It's when it comes to, for example, one of the big projects that we did, and it was fabricated in Germany. And the project management company, their expertise was in construction. So for them, I know how many bricks I need per floor, how many hours I need, and so on. And they were trying to run and manage the project of building an artwork or fabricating an artwork the same way. So it was, every meeting is like education, how to fabricate an artwork, what is an artwork. And each week, the team used to grow. They would have 2 new members, 3 new members, and we would repeat the same thing weekly, on a weekly basis. And when you fabricate an artwork, it's a handmade thing. It's not that you cut things and so on. And mostly definitely
It's
depends.
a highly customized
Exactly, tailored and so on.
experience.
Definitely, there are some artworks where you can do it as mass production, but most of the pieces are not. And so, one of the challenge that we had is that they wanted us to test the welding points and fabrication. The way you test, I'm going too technical, but bear with me.
Lay it on us.
When you test welding points, means you have to break this welding point, test it to see that the welding was fine by a destructive test. And this means you have to do it again. And that particular artwork had more than 3,000 welding point. And I tried to explain this several times, and there was no way. And so at the end, I said, okay, I prepared a report. What is welding? How you test welding? And what would be the measures to do after we test more than 3,000 welding point? And I gave them a proposal for that, which was to fabricate the artwork again. Because if I will go and test the 3,000 points, this means I'm destroying the artwork. Then he managed to see the impact of testing each welding point, and then he was able to accept what we were saying. So these are the challenges, is that when you deal with people, their expertise in a different sector, and you have to do the educational part. At the same time, it's fun because you go into, it's building the team, you build the relationship, and I'm happy to say that most of the projects that I did, I'm still in contact with.
What are some of those projects, Salam?
I think you know the ones that I have in Qatar, the Falcon and the.
Well, tell me about the Falcon one.
The Falcon was, and it's really nice. It's for Tom Klaassen, the Dutch artist, and we had several talks. It was for the airport in Doha, the new airport. And I was responsible from the fabricator point of view, from the artist point of view, and also communication with the project management company for the airport. And the fabrication had to finish during COVID. And it was, then we had the period to stop. It was the day that we had the installation planned, and I managed to arrive for the installation. And it was really nice. That was the project that had more than 3,000 welding points. And it was the communication with the artist. For example, I hope that people would see that the artist vision in the Falcon is that the folds of the Falcon are the folds of the tobe of the Qataris, and the feet and the way the Falcon is standing there. And so these folds we were not able to compromise. So we had to do them in a different way, the same as the color. One of the challenges is that after we have finished the engineering part in Germany, we received a request from the client is that we have to move or change the inclination of the artwork towards the street by 5 degrees. This meant we had to repeat all the engineering again.
Wow.
Because it had. So these are the challenges.
You also you worked with a project with the Braga, with the Butula.
Motherland.
The motherland.
Yeah, Burga.
Yeah, tell us about it, please.
This was for Sheikh Hassan al-Thani, and it was a really nice experience. I had the chance to meet Sheikh Hassan and have several talks and discussions with him at the art center with his team also. And the nice part about these projects is that when you have these talks with the artist and he gives you the depth of his vision, which sometimes you don't see it anymore if it didn't work on that project. You can't see it in any curatorial statement. It's the message directly from the artist. So it was nice how he explained it's a nostalgic thing. And I was really proud to have this artwork done for the National Museum and for the opening. It was there. For example, for this artwork, we also had a challenge is that we measured the opening of the door and the engineering was made. And after 6 months, we were informed that the door is installed now, but we forgot to tell you that it's a hinged door. So we lost 15 centimeter.
Wow.
And a 15 centimeter in installing such a thing is a big
This
issue.
is like the flock of birds airplane thing. Yeah, I mean, this is exactly, I mean, like, you might be planning, I'm not really into airplanes. I don't know why I'm using them as the example, but you could imagine if someone said to you, are we good to land today? And they look at the maps, like, yeah, this season's blah, blah, and then climate change. And then all of a sudden, all these migratory birds show up early because of climate change. And we have to redo everything.
Yeah.
Because I can imagine how frustrating that must be. And I can only imagine how frustrating it is, especially when you're working in cities or in countries or in areas where there is so much diversity, right? You might have engineers from one country, government officials from another country. You might have the artists from one country, the people engineering the project from another country. And this is where your intercultural thing comes in. And I want to know, honestly, sincerely, do stereotypes about people's different countries or backgrounds play any roles? Like, have you noticed, for instance, a type of nationality or a type of ethnicity is very stern about, rules and regulations. Another one is more concerned about, the art. Another ethnicity seems more concerned about the realisticness of the installation. Like, have you noticed that certain cultures are indeed, I don't want to say stereotype sounds kind of negative, but have you noticed that certain cultures do indeed have a tendency in caring about more than one aspect than perhaps other cultures do, since you are an intercultural?
I think you're trying to put me in trouble here, Joshua, but I will find a way to answer your question.
Yes. So you're an engineer and a diplomat, yes.
I think the stereotypes in this aspect comes into the professions, not the nationality.
Ah, great. So you've noticed, for instance, the IT guys are like this. The PR guys are like this. The, the engineer gals are like this.
Yeah. So it's when you are in a meeting, and as you said, you have all these kinds of people, and at some point of the project, you will be meeting everybody in the company, and even the tea boy would be sitting with us at the table discussing the details of the project and so on. And so in these moments, you notice it doesn't matter the nationality and what language. Everyone speaks his own English. We try to understand each other, but we don't.
But the reason why I asked is because your specific example about being asked to undo the welding, and you told me that the execution was being done in Germany. I said to myself, I think only the Germans would be so unreasonable to ask you to unweld 3,000 welding points. I couldn't imagine another country's
No.
engineering.
Actually, the Germans were trying to find a way. How do we test the welding in more economical way? And the person who asked about testing the welds was a British guy from quality control in construction field.
So this is why your aspect or your response does make more sense. It is more about the disciplines.
So I had to show him that there is a discipline of testing the welding machine, that the person who did the weld is a certified welder, and he just did his training, and that all the machines are tested and everything is fine. And then because he is quality control and has to do with money, I had to show him the impact of the money. So here comes the multilingual, not
Multicultural as far as the professional culture or
and
the
exactly, and the language of each profession.
so it's
the
a play on
jargon
words kind of Salam, because when I heard intercultural, I was thinking like people from different countries, different
Awesome.
languages, different religions. But you also mean people who are interdisciplinary and people who come from very different walks of life, educationally and professionally.
Yes.
Adds a whole nother layer to the word interculture.
Yes.
But what are some of the benefits, or what is something that, so when we drive by these areas or walk by these works of art, we're not necessarily internalizing all that they're doing for us.
Mhm.
Like it's different when you walk next to a hospital. It's way different than being in the hospital as a patient or as a doctor. When you're just simply passing by it, okay, a hospital, lots of people around, coming in, out, sirens, but also you're not really internalizing the purpose of the hospital. You're just interacting with the hospital merely because it's there. But when it comes to a place like Al Ula, what are some of the things that you think people should recognize when it comes to public art or on delivering on public art or designing public art? What do you think people are underappreciating when it comes to public art?
I think in general, we as humans, the most important thing for us is to create a memory. It's whether a memory for us or for others. And I think public art plays a big part in that. It's memory for us to tell later, or memory for us to know where I'm going, or a memory of a place that I visited. So public art can play a big part in that. It can help us to, talking about Al Ula, it can help us to carve some memories in the stone, and it can help us finding our way physically, emotionally. A lot of people would say, I remember that place that we... So it is a matter of creating a memory.
So which one was your favorite memory?
My favorite memory,
The one that had the most impact in your career as an intercultural industrial engineer?
let me think about it.
Maybe a public art, perhaps the one that had the most impact on you. Perhaps a favorite. Like for some might say Mount Rushmore.
Mm.
Others might say, for instance, Sydney Opera House. Perhaps it's a landmark. Perhaps it's a statue. Perhaps it's a... What is that? What was it for you?
I must say it's... I think the first time I've seen Eiffel Tower.
The Eiffel Tower.
Eiffel Tower, and
Not to be so cliche, huh?
it's too cliche, right? But I had the chance to go up on the highest with my daughter, and it's also, for example, the impact that is, for example, for places where you always used to see them on pictures, and then suddenly you are there. Petra, when you walk and you see it. So when I visit Al Ula, the same is that I see a lot of pictures. I saw a lot of pictures in Al Ula, but when I first visited it, it's a complete different impact. It's sometimes photography doesn't give you that thing,
Justice, yes.
that justice, yeah. And the most natural public art, I like the desert and the black sky.
So you like the natural art.
Yes.
That's very fair.
Yes.
That's very fair. I want to ask you, AI, artificial intelligence, what do you think is the future of your area of expertise and AI? So what are the applications going to be? How is it going to enhance or perhaps do a disservice to you? And then I want to ask you one more thing after. I'll go ahead and ask you now, just so while you're answering that question, perhaps the other half of your brain is answering another question, or perhaps, as you would argue, both sides of the brain are going to argue. But I want to know, do you consider art made by AI art? And this is a question we ask every art-related person in the studio. So please first tell us, how do you think AI is going to disrupt your area of expertise? Or disrupt or enhance?
Okay. My graduation project as an engineer was to develop an AI program for troubleshooting and maintenance. So that was in the beginning of what is supposed to be AI. I would say, from my point of view, AI is collecting information from somebody, try to mix it, and then get the answer. So all depends on what information you are giving. If this information is not the right information, then I'm not getting the right answer. And so that's why we have to be careful with which AI we're talking about. And is the information filtered? Is there any filter to this information that is...
Is it biased? Yes.
Is it biased? All these things. How is it going to affect the expertise? It might make it easier at some point for some people who don't have this expertise to access it. But at the end, as I said, it's not only a matter of having the expertise written in theory. You need a lot of practice. You need to be able to speak that language. You need to know how to implement it. Sometimes we minimize the professionality of doing anything into to-do list, and we skip the soft skills. Is AI going to give these soft skills to every person who's going to get that list?
So it just depends, I guess, on your condition or on your situation, your particular situation, or your particular task, or...
It's exactly...
So it's not like going to completely... It's not like, what the car did to the horse, or what, the airplane did to the ship, to the sail ship. Do you know what I'm saying? It just depends. I mean, there's still a huge demand for horses today, even though we're not using them for transportation per se. And what you're saying is, essentially, it just depends on what the situation is and what the circumstances. But the images that it makes, is it art? Even if I prompt it, make me something artistic, is it making art, in your opinion? Is that even deserving of being called art?
From an IP, intellectual property, I think there are a lot of discussions in that field.
What about as an artist, or someone who appreciates art, someone who consumes art, someone who has put so much effort and time and risked their reputation in the delivery of art? Can you still say that about something that's being generated by a machine or by an algorithm?
Me personally, I don't see it that way, no. I think, again, we are missing the human factor. I'm missing the person that did the effort, and the creativity is not collecting information and putting lines together, and it's not algorithm. It's a nice thing to have for now, but let's wait and see what will happen with it.
So you're saying let's wait, or were you saying it's not art?
I'm saying it's not art. But let's wait about the first part of your question, which was how people would benefit from that.
Yes. I could totally see it as a tool for inspiration. But we had many interviews with many artists, and a lot of them agreed that just like, the paintbrush disrupted the bone, and just like acrylic disrupted natural pigments, that's not to say that, the algorithm cannot replace the paintbrush today. And I'm just not seeing any intention or agony, or I'm not seeing a convincing story. If art is to be consumed by human beings, then it should be inspired by human beings. It should be, something about the human existence or how the human interacts with the natural world. And I'm just not seeing that in AI generated art. I'm not closing the door completely.
Exactly, no. But
As you said, perhaps it is. We have yet to see how
we never know how it's going to evolve, or will there be a different perspective to it?
I mean,
don't
perhaps
know.
if I was in a vegetable state and I cannot move, I cannot speak, and I have some sort of connection between me and the computer, and AI is helping me channel my artistic, abilities, even though I'm physically not abled, I could appreciate that as art. But the algorithm itself making a decision about the artistic aesthetic it's pursuing or that it's creating, even if it's one of a kind, even if it's unique, even if it's original, I'm just not able to connect with it as a work of art. And so I'm exploring this question, not out of, I'm not saying that I'm set in stone, I'll never change my mind. I just really want to know, as an expert, someone who's been working in this field for 20 years, are you able to relate to that work being generated by that algorithm as art?
But that's the thing. It's generated by algorithm, and I don't see that I don't sense the creativity in it because it's collecting information. The human mind collects and generates ideas differently. The algorithm is collecting ideas from different people based on information they submitted to that program. So the human will also read different things, will collect information, and will generate an idea. But where is the soft part of it? The algorithm doesn't have that. I'm always going to that point, which is the soft skills of a person, the intangible things of us. If I am writing all my ideas, okay, I will create something. But there is something in between which is not written. The algorithm does not have that. So where this part is missing, the soft skills of a human being. The emotions, where are the emotions that are generated while you are creating something? The algorithm doesn't have these emotions, or do they?
Time will tell, as you
Exactly.
stated.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Salam Bohlmann, who is an intercultural industrial engineer and particularly developed an expertise in public art and public art management. Thank you so much
Thank
for your
you.
time, being so generous with your expertise and with your knowledge and with your conversation.
Thank you, Joshua, for inviting me.
It's my honor and my pleasure.
Thanks for tuning in to Artifact
Season 2.
on Al Ula FM podcast.
The sound of Arabia.